we're talking staging plots, well, first we should back up. What is a staging plot? A staging plot is really nothing more than a location that whitetails, they tend to stop at before they reach their destination food source. So, in the afternoon, let's say, that mature buck, late afternoon, he's getting up, he's slowly working his way towards his destination food source. What most people don't realize is, heck, there are very, very few, if any. I'm not going to say never, because you can never say never or always in this stuff. But there are pitifully few mature bucks that actually truly are nocturnal. Now, what they do is they tend not to move where we are during daylight, so we automatically say, you know, these bucks are nocturnal. Well, no, the overwhelming majority of them are moving during daylight, during legal hunting hours. It's just that they're not reaching their destinations until, where we are, until oftentimes well after dark. Okay, a staging plot is nothing more than one of these locations that bucks and does, they stop at en route from their bedding area to their destination food source. Every one of these animals have destination food sources. There's locations that they are actually headed specifically to feed for that evening. They'll go ahead and alter, they change. That's not the exact same destination food source night after afternoon after afternoon, night after night, evening after evening, morning after morning. When it comes to truly knocking a staging plot out of the park, it's location, location, location. You want it to naturally flow from bedding to the destination food source. That's a major part of the location. Okay, the other major part is it has to be a location that we can slip in, hunt, and get out without being detected. The way that you create that ultimate staging plot is first you find those locations that are setting between bedding and destination food in a path that makes some degree of sense for the deer to follow. Now, that is step number one. Step number two then is you try to locate the more specific areas within those zones that you can get to, hunt, and get out. The next step, quite frankly, is you go ahead and you pick out your stands for your safe wind, access, and departure before. Oftentimes staging plots involve actually clearing some timber out of the woods. You can do it with a chainsaw, you can do it with dozers, track hoes, all that good stuff. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. You just need enough light in to be able to go ahead and actually create. It doesn't have to be a thriving planting, nice if it is, but an adequately thriving planting, okay? So we have quite a bit of, as long as we control the ground, we have quite a bit of flexibility on where we actually put these staging plots. As I said, you go ahead and you take a chainsaw, assuming that you're comfortable with it, you go out in the woods, you spend a day out in the woods and you can create a staging plot right there. Staging plots don't have to be huge. As a matter of fact, they tend to work better a little bit on the smaller side, between a quarter, half acre, about max. Okay. So now we have the location. It sits between bedding and feeding in a path that makes sense for deer to follow. It's awesome when it's actually on deer trails, because it's always easier to get deer to do something that they're already doing more than it is to get them to change what they're doing. Okay, and we have our stand locations picked out. We can access them, we can hunt them, and we can get out without being without getting busted. Then we go in and we start creating this plot. Okay, as I said, all we have to do is open it up enough, area that has good enough soil that can actually grow some crop, open up the canopy enough to get sun in. We do not have to take the roots of the trees out. Heck, we don't even have to take out the stumps. As a matter of fact, you leave those stumps about nose high or a little bit less than chest high, and you know what? They work out really great for hanging licking branches, which is, there's really two huge keys to three huge keys to these staging plots. A location that makes sense to the whitetails and us as well. Going ahead and opening up enough of the canopy to get sunlight down to go ahead and grow crops that work well. A crop that works really great in these types of scenarios is cereal rye. Cereal rye does not require a ridiculous amount of sun. It does not require tremendously great soil. Antler King's fall, winter, spring, which contains cereal rye, is a tremendously effective crop for planting in these especially limited light, limited acred staging plots, because they don't require great amounts of sun. Will they reach if they don't get sun? Sure, but that's okay. All we're trying to do is grow those grasses anyway for the deer and improve the soil as well, which is another reason why I like going cereal rye to begin with, is the cereal rye is a tremendous soil builder, and these staging plot soils typically aren't good. Okay, so you need to also select that planting that works well in these locations. Cereal rye and clovers are what the overwhelming majority of Inwood's small successful staging plots are planted in. Then go ahead and edge feather it. You can either edge feather it by traditionally logging a 5 to 10 yard band around this plot, or you can go in and, if you follow all chainsaw safety rules and are feeling very comfortable with a chainsaw, you can go in and hinge cut the low timber value, relatively small diameter trees around that staging plot. Now we have the cereal rye or the clover that's going nuts inside the plot, and we have this bounty of natural smorgasbord surrounding the plot. And there's another important reason for this, and that is so these deer can't see in. Okay, once we got that, then what we do is we go ahead and we put a ridiculous amount of licking branches around that staging plot. We want to make it so that those whitetails have two primary reasons to come here at least: feeding and socializing. Those scrapes are essentially the whitetail's equivalent of billboards, communication, socializing, that's it. They do so much talking through their noses and the scents they deposit, it's not even funny. Between the location, between the bedding and the destination feed, in a spot that we can access ourselves as hunters, because after all, we're doing this for ourselves as much as we are to help the other wildlife. Okay, so we need to be able to access it safely. It flows to the food. We have our stand sites, hopefully for several different winds, selected before we even go in there and start doing any clearing or any planting. We select a planting that delivers, such as cereal rye or clover, edge feather, and a glut of scrapes. You do that and you create a social hub as much as you do a feeding destination en route to their destination food plot.
Final thoughts, brought to you by Huntworth.
Staging plots are nothing more than locations that deer stop at before they reach their destination food source. Okay. They can be backed off anywhere from 10 yards to hundreds of yards off that food source. The key is it lies in a logical path between bedding and that destination food source, somewhere in there that we can access without exploding the place, that we have safe stands, and that makes sense for the whitetails. Then we start actually trying to create our staging plot. We can open it up with chainsaws, we can open it up with bulldozers, we can open it up with backhoes, or if we're lucky, it's an area that's already open. Well, you need to get darn lucky, because those spots are rarely the very best. Right. With our planting selected, such as cereal rye or clover, we do some edge feathering, and we put a ridiculous amount of scrape trees out there and licking branches. And by ridiculous, I'm talking on a half-acre food plot that we got a dozen different licking branch mock scrape locations couple of them will juice, most of them will just leave alone for the deer to take over, and we do that, and we create ourselves a social hub that is every bit as important for socializing as it is for feeding. And if we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, put it in that line, you know what? Odds are really good it's going to work out successfully for us.